I love reptiles. And chances are, if you are seeing this video, if you're on this channel, then you do too. You either love reptiles or you're at least interested by them or intrigued by them. But, I've got to admit something up front. Some of the animals that I love the most suffered because I didn't know what I was doing. And that's actually the reason that CrossStar Reptiles exists today. Hey, I'm Clint. I am the owner of CrossStar Reptiles. And if you love reptiles or you're curious about them, then this channel is about doing things better. It's about doing things ethically. It's about giving these animals the care that they really deserve. It's about educating kids and fostering in them just the natural curiosity for animals that are kind of sometimes overlooked or kind of looked down on as maybe the outcasts of the pet world. And when we talk about giving these animals the care that they deserve, a lot of times we think, well, they deserve to be in the wild, and that's not wrong. Um, they do deserve to be in the wild. But because of the pet trade, and this is something that's been going on for centuries, because of the pet trade, they're here to stay. And so while they are in captivity, we need to do the very best that we can to give these animals the care that they really deserve. I've loved reptiles since I was a kid. And ever since then, I mean, I've just been enamored with reptiles. If it crawled or hopped or slithered, then I was probably trying to catch it and bring it home. In fact, one time, I mean, I couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, and I caught a juvenile eastern copperhead in a plastic bottle and brought it home, and probably almost gave my mom a heart attack in the process. But I love reptiles, and the reptile that really caught my attention when I was a kid was the green iguana. And when I was in primary school, and where I went to primary school, it was kindergarten through third grade, and in the library there, they had several books on green iguanas, and I would check that book out week after week after week, and read everything that I could read about iguanas and about reptiles. And if you're a millennial or maybe at the tail end of Gen X, like me, I'm kind of in between in that zennial microcosm there. But you remember the Pizza Hut Book program, and I am probably personally responsible for Pizza Hut putting it into that program because I read book after book to get those little personal pan pizzas. But and the majority of those books were about reptiles, lizards, and snakes. But the green iguana was really the reptile that just caught my attention. And when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my parents got me my first green iguana, and that felt like a dream come true. But when I look back on it, it was a huge mistake. I mean, I was not prepared to care for an iguana. I mean, not even close. Um, and over the years, I've had several iguanas, and to be honest, I did those animals a huge disservice because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have proper enclosures. I didn't understand lighting and UVB and their calcium requirements and long-term care. And if I'm honest, some of those animals died because of my lack of knowledge, my lack of care and providing them with what they really need. A lot of reptiles are sold very cheaply with little to no education. I mean, at pet stores and reptile expos, you can go buy a green iguana for 20 or $30, a ball python for $10. I saw at the last expo that I was at. Um, but that little 12, 14-inch green iguana that's so cute at the reptile expo eventually is going to turn into a 4 to 6 foot long animal that's going to require a massive space and care. That little $10 green iguana that a lot of breeders with outdated information or just bad information will tell you, well, that animal can live in a 40-gallon aquarium its whole life. And that's honestly just terrible. I mean, 40-gallon might do for a little while they're a juvenile, but you're talking about a snake that's going to be 3 to 5 feet long when it's fully grown. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to make sure that you have everything that you can to care for those animals the right way. Um, a lot of times when you go to pet stores or reptile expos, people impulse buy. They see something that just really captures their attention, and they're not prepared. So before you buy, you need to make sure, do I have the right size enclosure? Um, for ball pythons, I recommend PVC enclosures and not aquariums that have screen or glass, screen tops and glass, because they don't provide security well. They don't hold humidity well. They can be modified, but it's just easier to get a PVC enclosure that's going to keep everything right. So, do you have the right enclosure? Is it the right size? A juvenile might do well in a 40-gallon aquarium for a little while, but eventually you need a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure for that ball python. If you see around me, this is part of my reptile room, and majority right here are ball pythons. They're all in 4 by 2 by 2 enclosures. Um, they have a temperature gradient. It's 86 to 88 degrees on the warm side. It's 75 to 80 degrees on the cool side. They have multiple hides, one on the cool side, one on the warm side, another in the middle, so that they can thermoregulate, because reptiles, being cold-blooded, unlike us, they can't regulate their body temperature. So they have to move between warm and cold spots to be able to do that. So does your enclosure have that? Do you have the right temperature gradient? Is the reptile you're getting, does it need UVB lighting? Does it need calcium supplementation, which most lizards in captivity do? Snakes generally don't, because they get the calcium they need from the bones of the prey that they are consuming, where reptile lizards are eating more insects or vegetables and things like that. So, are you prepared? Do you have the right knowledge? Is this an animal that you can take care of long term? I mean, a ball python can live 20 to 30 years. Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared for caring for an animal for that long? Do you have food sources ready? Do you know if you're going to feed frozen thawed or live? And I always recommend frozen thawed, because they're easier to store. They really save you money in the long run. You're not having to go back and forth to a pet store every week to buy a live mouse. And if you have quite a few, if you're raising your own, then that can be costly, and creates problems of its own. Um, and is the reptile that you're buying and wanting appropriate? There's a movie out right now that has a blue snake in it, and because of that, a lot of people are impulse buying blue insularis snakes that are highly venomous vipers. Um, just because your kid sees a blue snake in a movie doesn't mean they need a blue insularis. In fact, I would say that the majority of keepers do not need a blue insularis. They're beautiful snakes, but they are best observed through pictures or things like that. So if your kid is interested in a snake, do not go buy them a blue insularis. Find something that's more appropriate. For like me, when I was enamored with that green iguana, something like a green anole, um, or if you wanted something a little more exotic that still looks kind of cool, but is smaller, something like a jeweled lacerda. Um, those are great alternatives to that green iguana. So depending on the reptile that you want, there may be a better alternative. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have an enclosure that's 10 feet by 10 feet that you can put a 4 to 6 foot iguana in, then by all means, I mean, if you are able to give them the care that they need, that they deserve, then by all means, go for it. Um, but if you can't, then you may need to do some research and see if there's something a little better or a little more appropriate out there. And that's another problem, is a lot of the information that's out there, that's floating around when you're doing your research, is either outdated or just wrong. Um, a lot of people think, because, like me, when I was a kid, if they read something in a book, then they take that as the gospel truth. But a book can't be updated. A book that was published 30 or 40 years ago is not going to be as accurate as research that's being done today. And so when you can go online, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of bad information out there, but when you can find good resources, um, guys like Dave Kaufman or Clint's Reptiles, and my name is Clint, but it's a different Clint. But when you search Clint's Reptiles, he has a lot of good information. Um, There's another one, I believe it's Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. He has a lot of great care guides. When you can find people like that that are giving quality information, quality care guides, then that information is going to be more accurate than what you might read in a book that was published 30 or 40 years ago. When I had green iguanas back when I was a kid, they used to tell you things like, well, they need a heat rock. Um, no, they don't. Heat rocks are terrible. They still make them, they still sell them, but hot rocks are horrible for reptiles because it's an unregulated heat source. Nobody used to talk about thermostats and plugging in the heat pads that you would use into a thermostat or the heat rocks. And they're horrible for lizards. They're even worse for snakes. Um, or monitor lizards. People used to talk about feeding them cat food and dog food. That's a terrible, terrible thing. Um, Back in the day, again, breeders used to say you could keep a ball python in a 40-gallon aquarium its whole life. And I highly disagree with that. I know many people would probably still say that it's okay because, ball pythons don't move around a lot. They go from hide to hide. But again, you're talking about a snake that can't even fully stretch out in a 40-gallon aquarium when it's full size. And I followed some of that bad advice myself. And it's not me that paid the price for it, it's those animals. And those failures and the amount of bad information out there, that's why I started CrossStar Reptiles. I love these animals. They're not just a hobby for me. I know we talk about in the reptile world this being a hobby, but it's more than that. My goal is to raise quality animals, animals that are cared for and raised from the time they are hatched with the right husbandry. That are animals that are socialized, animals that are healthy. Um, and then I can put them into somebody's hands that has the knowledge, and they're able to provide them the correct husbandry so that that animal can live a full and healthy life, even in captivity. And I know I hear people all the time talk about, well, those animals should be in the wild. Well, they can't be released into the wild. They would suffer. They would die if you take an animal that's been raised in captivity. Uh, and the pet trade's not going anywhere. So that means we have to do better as keepers, as breeders, um, to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I am a breeder. I have ball pythons. I have Ackie monitors, Western hognose snakes. I have red-eyed crocodile skinks, Leachianus geckos, and veiled chameleons. Um, I also build custom enclosures. I have all of the things that we need to do bioactive enclosures, and I'll be doing a video later on how to build a bioactive enclosure. What to use, the temperate springtails and things, other isopods. I raise my own feeders as far as dubias. Now, my mice I get from rodentpro.com, and they've been very good to me. And so, I feed them frozen thawed. Um, I want to do the very best that I can to provide, my animals and the people that are getting animals from me with the very best information, the very best care possible. I want those animals to go to educated owners who understand what they're taking on long term. Um, and I think part of this and part of my love for these animals comes from my faith. Believe it or not, I'm a pastor. And I know you don't hear a lot of, probably a lot of pastors that keep reptiles or, a lot of Christians with bad information, misinformation. They're scared of snakes. We're taught to fear reptiles and snakes from the time that we're very young. Um, and I think in a lot of ways, that's what has drawn me to these animals because in my faith as a pastor, my calling and my drawing has been to those who are marginalized, those who may look to be outcast. And so I feel the same way. I think about these animals. These are kind of the outcasts of the animal world. And I believe that God created these animals and he gave us as humanity the responsibility to care for all of these animals, to care for our world, to take care of our planet, to love all of the animals, not just the fuzzy ones, the puppies and the cats and rabbits that everybody loves, but reptiles as well. Um, and I don't say that judgmentally or to condemn anyone, but I want to teach and to educate, to help people do better. Um, again, when I was a kid and my love for reptiles, there wasn't a whole lot available back then to kind of foster that. And so it wasn't, really, I guess, until I was a teenager that you had the crocodile hunter come along. And that was really the first big push toward reptiles or Jeff Corwin. when he came along. You know, those guys really kind of changed the dynamic and the way that people see reptiles. But in a lot of ways, um, you know, people still have a fear of the unknown, fear of those animals, and they're taught just bad information. You hear things like all the time, like, you know, the only good snake is a dead snake. Well, and the truth is that if it weren't for snakes and controlling the rodent population, we would be overrun. So I want to educate people. I want to help people to understand what they fear. People often fear what they don't understand. And so if I can help to educate and to teach people better ways, and as kids come along, that they can see and experience something real and foster their own curiosity to direct them that it's okay. You know, reptiles are great, but there may be something better than a green iguana out there for you. And so this channel, I want to do things differently. You know, I want to give accurate and modern husbandry information. I want to help people avoid the mistakes that I made. I want to give kids a place to learn responsibly, that, you know, not every reptile is for every person, that there might be better alternatives. Um, and all in all, I just want to help these animals to live the very best lives possible. And so if you love reptiles and you want to do things the right way, I'd love for you to stick around. If you would subscribe, for everybody who subscribes, I named off the animals that I raise: ball pythons, western hognose snakes, crocodile skinks, ackee monitors, leachianus geckos, veiled chameleons. I have care guides that I have developed for those snakes. I have a very shortened version, and then I have a keeper level husbandry manual. If you would subscribe and leave a comment, if you want one of those care guides, I would be happy to share those for anybody who would subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment and join us on this journey. Again, I'm Clint, and this is CrossStar Reptiles, and we're just getting started.